This is Support is Sexy, episode 574, with Monica Shah, founder of Revenue Breakthrough. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so happy to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. And today I am super excited to welcome our guest, Monica Shah. Had such a great conversation with her. And, you know, sometimes I have selfish moments. This was one of those selfish interviews because I was so inspired by Monica, inspired and informed, I will say, by her conversation about marketing. Marketing is something that I won't say a lot of us, but plenty of us struggle with in our businesses, especially thinking about those early days when you're figuring things out. You might be beating yourself up because you feel like you should have figured things out by now. You know how it is. Marketing, if you're not a person with a marketing background, and maybe even if you are, can be difficult. What I love about the conversation with Monica, she not only provides us with great strategies, but she talks about the role that mindset plays in marketing and in business overall. Business, marketing, your money mindset, all of those things are tied up into how well you do in your business, how you sabotage yourself sometimes in your business. Mindset plays a big role. And if you haven't heard, I am very passionate about learning more about mindset and sharing more about mindset. And I actually have a free download, a mindset meditation just for you if you want something to help you get grounded, get centered as you go about your way in your business, in your life in general, which you can download for free at levelupmindset.coach. That's levelupmindset.coach. A free meditation to help you level up your mindset. So now I'm excited to share this episode with Monica because, as I said, she talks about mindset, talks about marketing, but also gives us 5 concrete steps to generate money in our businesses. She also says that you should be asking for money at least 3 times a week. You hear that? You should be asking for money in your business in different ways at least 3 times per week. She also talks about her own personal journey and how she went from rock bottom in a New York City subway system to creating the business she has today, which is a 7-figure consulting and coaching business. And she also talks about those first few years of entrepreneurship, which she refers to as the crying years. All right, so there's tons of great information in here. I know you're going to enjoy it. So without further ado, Monica Shah. So Monica, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
I'm super excited to be here.
Excellent. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Well, it's funny because my father is an entrepreneur, and so I didn't realize I was falling in love with it, but I really appreciated when I was little. I used to play tennis, and my dad was one of the only dads that could come and watch my matches. And I think because it felt like there weren't a lot of parents there, or the parents that were there were the sort of non-working parents. And I remember looking up and being so proud that my dad would pull up and be able to watch my matches at like 3:30 in the afternoon. And I remember thinking then that I wanted that. Like I wanted to have that kind of flexibility for my family, that I wanted to be able to have time be my own. And I really started to connect that with having my own business, just like my dad did.
What kind of business did your dad have, or does your dad have?
He sold it when I was in college, but he started out as a civil engineer, and then he took over the engineering firm that he worked for. He bought it and then expanded it to 3 states. So, and then he ultimately sold the firm when I was in college.
So when you were younger and he was showing up at those games, did you know that he was, even if you didn't know entrepreneur or a businessman, or that he worked for himself, or you just remember at that time the thing that really stuck with you was, my dad can show up for me?
I knew he had his own business because when I was really little, he would take me to the office with him on the weekends to on Saturdays, we would use that as a day to catch up with mail. And so I kind of felt like I grew up around him and his company. And so I knew that it related to the fact that he was in charge.
Now, where did you grow up?
In Cincinnati, Ohio.
In Cincinnati. Okay. So how would you describe yourself as a young person growing up in Cincinnati, Ohio?
I was super quiet when I was growing up, and I had this incredible love for animals. And so I worked at the Cincinnati Zoo pretty much from, I took classes there when I was super little, and then I started volunteering there, and then I started working there as soon as I was old enough to do that. And I was an interesting young person because I talked more to animals than I did to people. And
the animals understand you, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I found out that my original intention, my original desire was to be a veterinarian. And I found out in college that I was allergic, that I developed an allergy towards fur, and all fur, not just like some kinds of animal fur. And I was totally devastated because I had spent my whole life thinking I was going to do one thing, and then I ended up doing another. And so I'm one of those people that kind of looks back and doesn't, if it's not an obvious parallel as to like who I was and what I was doing when I was little to what I do today as a coach and working with clients. But what is unobvious about it is that I'm highly intuitive. So in the same way that I used to watch the animals, I watch my clients, and I can kind of sense what they need and when they need it without them having to say it in words. So it's been interesting to make those connections and to have that ability now working with humans when I always said I would work with animals.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you ever have any inkling? I know you talked about watching your dad and his business, but did you ever have any inkling when you were younger that you would become an entrepreneur at some point?
I always thought, I never made the connection to having, yeah, I mean, I did think I was going to have my own business. I didn't really make the full connection to what that meant as an entrepreneur, but I was very clear that I wanted to manage my own time, and I wanted to manage my own money, and I wanted to dictate how I got to be with my family.
Mm-hmm. So tell us, what school did you go to? You mentioned college.
I went to Northwestern University.
Okay. Excellent.
Undergrad. Excellent.
So what did you study at Northwestern?
There I studied, it's funny, I studied writing was one of my majors, religion, and environmental science, which none of those three majors, relate at all to, to what I do today, but they were all super helpful in terms of what I use today, in terms of like the writing and the religion. I've read every spiritual text, the Gita, the Quran, the New Testament, the Old Testament, and it really affects my own spirituality and the way that I teach business.
Excellent. So after school, what did you do after college? What was your first job? Because you didn't go into entrepreneurship right away, I know.
No, I didn't. I actually went into consulting. I went to work for American Management Systems, which was it's a consulting firm that actually was bought by Deloitte. So now it's owned by Deloitte. And essentially what we did is go into companies and work with them on various strategy projects and change and like company projects that they needed to get done. And so it was super interesting in terms of learning how to manage a project, how to present in front of people. It's interesting because I think consulting is one of those jobs that gives young people a ton of responsibility up front, way more than I think if you actually went to the company. So I think it was really fantastic to jump in there because you end up being responsible for so much at such a young age. And I still think today it's like a really great field for people to start because you end up managing so much so early on.
So it's working with a company, but a company that does consulting with several different brands, you mean? So not being a consultant on your own. Oh, that's great advice for people who are in school right now who listen. We have some college students who listen. Hey, everybody. That's great advice. So then at what point then did you make the transition into entrepreneurship? What was that moment like and what pushed you there to make that move?
Well, it was a couple years later. I actually went back to business school. I went to the Kellogg School of Management, got my MBA, which is Northwestern's business school. And then I graduated from there and went to L'Oréal Paris and was a brand manager for L'Oréal Paris. And what had me make the leap is it was an interesting story. I was working one night with my manager then, and the plant we were working on, I was on the moisturizer brands, and the plant had broken down that day, and there was a certain bottle that we needed to find immediately in order to make sure that our moisturizer launch went out on time. So it was 2 a.m. and I had gone to the store and picked up like 50 different moisturizer bottles so that we could find a prototype. And literally at 2 a.m. I was like taking one bottle, dumping out the lotion. We were checking it out. Then I would take the next bottle and then we would discuss that bottle. Then I would take the next bottle and we would discuss that bottle. And I looked up at her and she looked at me and she said, Monica, is this the most fun activity you've ever done? Aren't you having like the most fun right now? And I thought she was joking. Like I thought we like entered the Twilight Zone or something like that. And then I realized that she was very serious and that she really enjoyed this. And she ended up going on to be one of the youngest people to go all the way up the ladder at L'Oréal and was fantastically skilled and passionate about her job. And it made me really get that I wasn't. And that I wanted to do something that I was that passionate about and that I was really skilled at. So ultimately I left L'Oréal and had started learning coaching at a nutrition school and decided in the in-between, I thought, I wasn't even certain that I wanted to do a business, but I knew that I was really good at giving advice and coaching because I've been doing that my whole life. So I started doing that. And I just, it just sort of started flowing and it was easy and it was fun and it was very mission oriented and it was changing people's lives. And I remember when I went to go do a job interview for Mattel, which makes toys, right? They make Barbie and Hot Wheels. And I was interviewing to be a brand manager on the Hot Wheels brand, which was my dream job in business school. Mattel was the one company that I didn't get any offer or interest from that I really wanted. And I'm sitting after the interview and I realized I just couldn't do it. Like I couldn't take a job that wasn't aligned with my passion. Now, don't get me wrong. Like I think it's really important to make Hot Wheels and toys and it wasn't my thing at the time. And I got really clear that I had to step in to what felt like my path and what I was called to do to make change in the world.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that part of your story. I love that too with the woman who said to you, aren't you having the most fun? The fact that, as you mentioned, after that, you didn't say, or maybe you did, but you didn't say to us, oh, she was crazy for loving what she did or crazy for loving her job. The fact that you shared that, she ended up rising through the ranks and doing really well, but it's because she was excited about that thing. And you realize in that moment, I am not. And just for people to catch that, sometimes I think we think, I always say no job shaming. We shame people who love their jobs. I have friends who love their jobs. I don't think they're crazy for not being an entrepreneur. They might think I'm crazy for being an entrepreneur, but they understand, so they support it. So I want everyone to catch that it doesn't have to be either or. It really is, as you said, Monica, tapping into what really lights you up, right?
Absolutely. It's so interesting because once you've been an entrepreneur for a while, you realize that the grass is not greener.
Right.
It's not greener anywhere, right? Like work is work. And I think the most important piece is that you choose it, right? Like you choose the work that you're going to do, whether it's for someone else or for yourself, such that so that there's joyful parts to it and that there's parts of it that are really aligning with your mission, because it's not even going to be all of it. There are parts of my work that I would rather not do, but there are parts that just light me up, and I'm willing to do the parts that I don't like so that I can do the parts that I do.
Right. So now tell us what that first year was like for you as an entrepreneur. You first left. I know you loved, like you said, the feeling of it and that you felt like you were really creating something meaningful for people. But what was that first year like for you? And what did you learn during that time?
It was tough. I I call the first year of entrepreneurship the crying years, and because if you're like me, and if you're like most entrepreneurs, there's a little bit of crying every day on some level that happens as you're learning new things. And for me, within 12 months of jumping out and working for myself, I was $25,000 in debt. And it wasn't money that I was spending on like clothes or shoes or fancy chairs or tables. It was real money that I was spending on my business, investing and learning and growing and trying to figure everything out. And what I got clear on was that it wasn't so much the debt that I was afraid of. It was the fact that I wasn't able to figure out how to pay the debt off, that it wasn't decreasing in size, that I wasn't able to, like, it just felt like it kept growing and growing and growing. And I couldn't figure out how to make consistent money. And for the life of me, I had gone to business school. I had the MBA. I had worked at L'Oreal Paris, where I had launched 3+ brands a year while I worked with them. And yet working for myself and asking for money is a completely different story. Right. So I ended up doing everything that I could to make money. Like, I walked dogs, I cat sitted, I sold stuff on eBay, I did focus groups. It was like I was just trying to make ends meet and I was living in New York City at the time, so things were not inexpensive for me at that point either. And I finally, there was one particular week where I had rented my apartment out on Airbnb for 8 days in a row. And I'd slept on one person's couch for a couple days, and another person's couch for a couple days, and then a third person's couch. And I was a bit sore and groggy, and I grabbed all my stuff to be able to go home finally. And I got on the subway, got off the subway at the 34th Street BDFQ, for those of you that are from the New York area. Yes. And I had 2 bags on one arm, 2 bags on another arm, a bag across my chest, and a roller bag that I'm like carrying around. And I'm walking up the subway
steps.
And it's crazy. The bags are falling off and people are pushing me because, New Yorkers are so sweet all the time.
All the time. Everyone asks if you want help.
Exactly. People are giving me that look, which is like, if you can't handle your stuff, you shouldn't be here.
Right.
And so then I get to the top of the stairs and I look to the left and the escalator's closed. And I look to the right and the elevator's closed, which is the only reason I picked this up to begin with. And I looked in front of me and there were 4 more flights of stairs to get to street level. And it was insane. I got, at that moment, really just got tired. And I suddenly got clear that I had been just being a martyr for my business. So I could tell people that I was in business, but I wasn't really doing the things that I wanted to be doing. I was sleeping on people's couches, schlepping stuff around the city. And I finally just put my bags down on the floor. I stood there for a moment. I could feel the tears starting to come. And then I did the unthinkable. I sat down on the New York subway floor.
Oh my gosh, you were definitely having a moment.
Yeah, having a moment. You hit rock bottom, right? Like, you sit down on a New York subway floor.
What were you feeling in that moment? I mean, I know you mentioned tears and obviously exhaustion, but what was it that just made you say, I gotta sit? Yeah,
I think it was just the sudden realization that this had to stop, that either I had to stop or this had to stop. And I got, when you have a rock bottom moment like that, I just started to think, I have to figure out how to make money in my business so I can stop lying to myself and lying to my friends and family. And I have to do this now. And if I can't do it, then I have to go back to work and work for someone else. But I can't do this anymore, where I'm not really working, but doing everything possible but that, and still not figuring out how to generate money. And at that point, there was so much shame and anger and frustration running through me. And I decided that, I said, I'm giving myself 12 months to work this out. 12 more months. And if I don't start generating money in a consistent way, I'm going back and I'm going to get a job. And for me, it was giving up, right? It was end of the road. And that's not something that I really wanted to face, but I could already feel my confidence being shattered just by doing what I was doing. And so I did that. I got a renewed energy to figure it out, especially given that I had a deadline. Mm-hmm. And I hired everyone that I could, marketing coaches, business coaches. I went back, I talked to my dad. I went back and I learned and I studied some of the stuff I'd gotten in business school, and I got re-inspired. And what I got really clear on is that I was doing everything backwards and upside down in the wrong order at the wrong time. And I was working twice as hard as I needed to and making half as much money as I could. And it fundamentally started because what I was doing was what a lot of other entrepreneurs doing too, which is sort of playing Russian roulette with their business, like sort of spinning the wheel and hoping that it lands on what marketing activity are they going to do that day, or what are they going to do to generate money. And what I got clear on is that there's really 5 concrete steps to generate money in your business. And the first is that you have to improve your relationship with money. Like, you can't be afraid of money. You can't be afraid to look at it. You can't be ashamed of asking for it. And yet this is stuff that we all carry. So the first work at hand is to understand what's your stuff. What's your stuff around having money? What's your stuff around not having money? What's your stuff around asking for money? And starting to really improve that relationship so that you can do the work of building your income and of building your business. Because what they don't tell you before you go into entrepreneurship is that your whole life, you're told not to talk about money. Mm-hmm. And then you build a business and they tell you to look at your money every day, to ask for it all the time, to track your numbers, to know what you're doing. And it's this huge bait and switch that if you don't look at that, you'll always have resistance to it. I meet entrepreneurs all the time who are so skilled at everything but the money piece. And it's because they don't even realize how many voices in their head are telling them not to look at that money, or have beliefs around why they can't. So that's the first piece, is improving your relationship around money. The second step.
Well, before you move on to the second one, thank you. I think that's such a powerful first one. Thank you for sharing that. And I think also, do you think that we should be aware also that sometimes your money story can cause you to make some money for a while and then end up losing it all, or losing the client, or because you're, again, that relationship with money, there might be some either fear there or some self-sabotage or some of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I meet people who have the story that money, I can't have money in love. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, when they bring money in, they're always spending it. Or when they bring money in, they're always giving it away. And there's so many versions and iterations of this. Like, if you watched your parents give away all their money, chances are that you're probably giving away yours.
Or if you constantly heard that rich people are greedy, or rich people are bad, or anything like that, like some negativity around money, having money.
Absolutely. Okay. Or you have to work really hard to make money. So then, if you do, and then you have to give up your life, which, why would you want to do that if that is true? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Number 2.
So then the next piece is focusing on what I call revenue generating activities, or RGAs. And these are activities that actually bring in money. Now, it is so, so easy to get sucked into a day where you are just crossing things off your checklists and none of them are bringing in money. The number one activity that brings in money is a sales conversation. It's asking for money from someone. And you can do a one-to-one sales conversation or a one-to-many sales conversation. And my rule of thumb for most of my clients is you've got to at least be asking for money 3 times a week. And if you're not, then chances are that no matter what else you do that week, you're still going to get to the end of the week and be worried about money. And so when you're thinking about what you're doing in your business, it should always be lined up with what activities are going to generate sales conversations for me. What activities are going to generate opportunities where I can ask people to buy from me. Now, there's a whole other piece that really connects with all of that, in learning marketing and learning sales. But fundamentally, it's about the focus in that direction where people really seem to shy away from it.
Yes, I love this. So now with asking for money at least 3 times a week, does that mean, or what could that mean? Does that mean, you're actually making some kind of offer, or like you said, you're at least having some conversations, or is it a combination of things, or is it specifically saying?
I mean, the two general categories are one-to-one conversations and one-to-many.
Right.
So the one-to-one would be if you're talking to individuals and you're asking them to buy your product or your service. The one-to-many would be if you're standing in front of a crowd, like at a speaking event, and you ask people to set up conversations with you. Or if you're doing, say, a webinar and you ask people for conversations with you.
I like that as a goal. I'm going to make that a new goal. That's like making consistent offers to people, but having a number in mind of how many you want to do at least per week. And everything should sort of ladder up into that, being able to make offers to people.
Yes.
Excellent.
And it's, and really at Revenue Breakthrough, which is my company and where I coach people, this is one of my real focuses is on saving people time. Because if you really hone in on everything you're doing leading to an ask or an offer or monetizing everything, you'll find that you can cut out a lot of the extra little itty bitty stuff that everyone thinks you need to be doing.
Right.
Not only that, you start generating more revenue, which allows you to build more teams so that you have other people doing the tasks that you can't do.
Right. So what are some of the itty bitty things that get in the way before we go to number 3?
So like a lot of people will assume, like it's just about time and energy. So I meet people a lot who are spending hours on Facebook or hours writing blog posts or hours trying to figure out LinkedIn or hours networking, frankly, and not meeting people who could actually do sales conversations with them. And it's interesting because there's like a great book out there that says like never eat lunch alone. And I'm not sure that is true, right? Like it's about focusing in on what are the activities that are going to allow you to make as many offers as you possibly can in front of people. And so, that's sort of where at Revenue Breakthrough we teach business a little bit differently is we're all about helping you save time and make more money at the same time by not doing the things that just don't work.
Right.
Over and over again. It is about facing the fear though, right? Which is why you have to really look at your relationship, consistently look at your relationship with money and the voices in your head that come up. Because if you're going to make offers to people, if you're going to do more sales, you're going to have more fear that comes up. So step 1 and step 2 really go hand in hand and they go back and forth.
All right. Number 3, this is great.
The third piece here is making sure that you're tracking your numbers. So ultimately, what I love about tracking things like tracking your revenue, tracking your conversion rates, tracking what activities are working and not working for you is that the numbers allow you to lean in to something that is more comforting than the voices in your head. So like if it's so easy for us just to get to the end of the month and say, I'm not good enough. I didn't do this. She filled her program, but I can't fill mine. I'm not cut out for business. I don't have an MBA. I never really learned this stuff. And when you do that, when you beat yourself up, it allows you to quit. We don't always realize this, but it does. Like it allows you to spend time and energy beating yourself up and to not keep moving forward. And what I love about the numbers is the numbers set you free from that. So for example, if you know that your conversion rate is how many conversations do you need to have in order to close one client. So if you know that your conversion rate is 1 out of 3, which means you need to have 3 conversations in order to close 1 client, then if you need 2 new clients, and you didn't get them, say this month, you can look back and you say, well, did I at least have 6 conversations?
Right.
If the answer is no, then you know that the answer is that you need 6 conversations. It's not that you're not good at it or that you can't do it. It's just that you need 6 conversations, which gets you back into action, back into progress, and out of sort of taking yourself out of the game.
Yes, and it gives you a goal, which I love that you've given us in each example, just sort of goals to give ourselves. So like you said, if it didn't work with that, then you need to do 6 or whatever your numbers are. But it gives, but then it also takes us out of the story. We get so caught up, a lot of us, in the story and not looking at concrete things like the numbers.
Absolutely.
Right? Which will give us a strategy, right? As opposed to just a story.
Exactly. And this goes across the board in business. It's why it's so important that you start to really understand the numbers of things, like simple things, like how many people who register for your webinar show up on average, and how many people should be buying. I mean, there's all kinds of numbers in business. And if you're just making up stories about why things aren't working and you're not looking at tracking your numbers, then most likely you're just going to be disappointed a lot when you shouldn't even be disappointed. When maybe you even did better than average or better than an industry standard, but you just don't know it because you're not looking at your numbers.
And a lot of times, do you find with your clients at Revenue Breakthrough that in the beginning, before they work with you, obviously, they might be even afraid to look at the numbers? Because sometimes, again, we've probably created our own story about what this means and think the numbers are going to create that story, as opposed to, as we've said, it'll help you figure out what your strategy could be to improve for next time. Do you find that there's fear around that the same way there's fear around money?
Oh, totally. I mean, it all kind of goes. So when I say you have to improve your relationship with money, I really mean you have to improve your relationship with numbers, period. And looking at it. So we're always sort of going back to what's the fear, around looking at your numbers or tracking, and what's the story you've made up about why you can't or can do this. Absolutely. And especially for women, there's a lot of stories we carry around. For so many women I meet, there's still a subconscious belief that someone else is going to save us. And so we don't have to look at our numbers because there's some net that's just going to appear that's going to save us. That's going to roll out and make it okay for us to not be responsible for ourselves. And it's something one of the things that I've noticed, I've been in both of my companies now. This will be year 13. We'll be going into year 14 next year. And I've been coaching full time the entire time. So it's been really amazing to watch the patterns. And what I've noticed happen now is that I get a lot of women that are coming in that want to build their businesses, and they're in the age group of being in their 60s or early to late 60s, maybe even going into early 70s. And they are, one of the first things they always say to me is, I wish I would have started earlier. And I wish that I didn't have to work so hard now to build savings, to build extra income, because I depended too much on other people when I was younger. I thought it would work itself out. And now here I am having to work at a time in my life when I wish I could just be with family or be with my kids or rest or travel. And I just think, and I even hear women in their late 50s talking about that too. And so it's just important, there's no judgment, right? Whenever we get started is whenever we get started, right? And there's no judgment there, nor should there be any shame. But it is important to get that the sooner we have a better relationship with our numbers, the sooner we start tracking, the sooner we start looking at money, the sooner we can start putting money away, which allows us to be able to create our lifestyles however we want them to be at whatever age we are or we want to, or when we get to that age.
Right. Excellent. And you've had this particular business, Revenue Breakthrough, for 13 years?
I've had Revenue Breakthrough since 2010. So this will be 8 years. And then the first company was before that. Yeah.
It was the first company in coaching, sort of consulting.
Yeah, it was a coaching company too. I was doing health and sort of corporate consulting.
Okay.
During that time. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting how it all, sort of going back to what we said in the beginning, it all ties into what you do now. And I know you have very much you've talked about mindset kind of things and health, wellness tied into marketing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So number 4, I think we're up to.
Yep. So number 4 is all about having a plan. And when I work with my clients, I start out with, and it's when I do planning, it's called breakthrough planning, and that's my signature style of planning. And when I work with clients, we create their 12-month plan when we first start working together. When I work with clients privately, and for me, myself, like we have all of 2019 planned out. And that might be excessive if you've never done planning before. One of the key notions that I like to describe here is it's called the 60-day rule. And the 60-day rule is that it does seem like we run out of money, and we want it immediately. Like, I want money yesterday or tomorrow, or I'm not going to be able to pay my rent this month. But it's in actuality, it's difficult to make money in 30 days. What actually consistently, what really needs to happen is that all of your marketing activities that you're doing now are going to take around 60 to 90 days in order to grow and to have the seeds start coming out of the ground, to have the plants happen, and to start seeing fruit from that marketing activity. So when you're considering planning, when I talked about revenue generating activities in step 2, things like speaking events and sponsorships and webinars and videos and getting in front of your ideal target market, you want to be starting to plan those activities for the next 60 to 90 days. And you want to consistently be planning for the next 60 to 90 days at least, so that the seeds are always blooming and you're always able to pick the fruit from what you did 60 to 90 days ago. And I found that over and over again, most entrepreneurs are only planning for the immediate. Like, they're not necessarily planning for the next 3 to 6 months or even the next 12 months. And that's really the difference between entrepreneurs who are generating $30,000, $40,000 and entrepreneurs who are generating $100,000, $300,000 and up. It's your ability to be able to create a plan.
Right. So the second piece of
this is, I believe that breakthrough planning is the highest form of self-care. So it really allows you to hand things over to other people to get help on. Like, if you're doing your PowerPoints last minute, then you're just picking out pictures on the web yourself and you're spending 5 hours doing something. Whereas if you did a PowerPoint a week ahead of time, you could spend a half an hour putting all the words on the slide and then hand it over to someone else to make it beautiful. And I find over and over again, we're not giving ourselves the highest form of self-care, which is just having a plan so that other people can help you.
All about support. I'm with you, Monica. Got to get support. Got to get support. So I'm interested in knowing, for you with your breakthrough planning, what's one example of something that, if you're looking at, as you said, something I'm going to do now, and knowing that, 60 or 90 days from now, I'll sort of reap the benefit of it. What's one example for people to know that they should put on their calendar, or something to look at in that case?
Well, for example, one activity that you might want to put onto your calendar is speaking events. So like doing talks in front of people that are in your target market, or in front of people who could be partners with you. And one of the things that's hard about talks is getting them. And so, for example, right now, it will take you usually anywhere from 3 to 6 months to get your talks booked. So that's something you want to start looking at putting on your calendar now in order to do that. And even if you're somebody who's not an offline person, say you're an online person, even getting yourself booked on podcasts and getting yourself booked on webinars, you want to start doing that ahead of time, because even those folks are booking out their speakers 3 to 6 months ahead of time.
That's right. Thank you so much for saying that. I swear, everyone, I did not pay Monica to say this, but Monica, I have a podcast booking service called Girl on Podcast. And one of the things that people ask usually the most is, how soon, which is a relevant question. How soon can you get me on? How soon can you get me on? I always say, and the people who work with me let clients know, we ask that you give at least 60 to 90 days for the whole process of not only just onboarding and all those things, but also, as you said, reaching out to people, letting people get to know you, getting you booked. They might not have, a spot available next week. It takes time, and people plan seasons and podcasts all kinds of different ways. So as you said, with all marketing, you have to think about how it's going to work moving ahead, not necessarily next week.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And And understanding too the sales cycle, right? So if you have a sales conversation with someone now, they may or may not be ready or interested in buying from you. But the more conversations you have, the more it allows you to also do your follow up and say, okay, who are the people I talked to 60 and 90 days ago who who I've been connecting with, who may be ready now to join my programs.
So that's a good idea for keeping track of who you did have those conversations with, or not even just keeping track of who you had a conversation with, but when you had those conversations.
Absolutely.
Excellent. What would you say has been the biggest payoff for you marketing wise in your business over the last almost 10 years? Or has it changed over time?
It's definitely changed over time. I think when I first started, it was simply building a network of people who could share opportunities with me. So like getting out of my house and connecting with people who might say, oh, Monica, I think you should speak at that event. Or Monica, this person would be a great partner for you. Like that was really piece one. And then as I got more and more well known, I think the second piece was definitely speaking and doing talks. And then as I got more and more well known, the piece that really came in later was doing my own events, right? Inviting people to my own events, and then offering really great content there as well. So, it's one of the pieces that is important that I actually add to my second step, which is your revenue generating activities are going to shift based on what phase you are in your business and what level you're playing at.
That's good to know too, because sometimes I know I've been through this. I think I'm quote unquote supposed to be at a certain point, or this is what I said I was going to do, so I have to stick with that forever. But then as I grow and the business grows and the clients grow and things change, you have to give yourself permission to be able to make those adjustments as needed, right?
Absolutely. And, there's different resources needed for each level. Like if you're someone who wants to play online, you're going to need a list. Like no doubt about it, hands down, you will need an email list, not a Facebook list, not a, LinkedIn group, an actual email list. And that takes time to build. So you may not be a big player in the online space immediately. So it varies as you build your own assets and resources.
Right. Okay. And I think we're up to number 5.
Yes. Number 5 is an easy step, although it can be, more, it's a little, it can cause people some issues if they're not careful about it. And that step is rinse and repeat. Now, the reason I created step 5, it's not even actually in my book or, in some of my older materials. The reason I created step 5 was because I kept seeing entrepreneurs get distracted, frankly. Like they would either find other businesses to focus on, other side businesses or side hustles, and they wouldn't commit to their singular focus or their singular target market, or they would launch so many different programs or so many different products that they weren't focusing exclusively on building up one, or it was about they were doing different talks everywhere. They weren't focusing exclusively on doing one talk and getting better at it. So it's this piece of avoiding the shiny penny syndrome, where you're walking along and you're just kind of trying to do everything at once, and really focusing in on what's working for you, what are you doing well, and what business are you focused on.
Now, how do we know when it is time to focus in on or stay focused on that one thing, as the book, The One Thing, which I love? How do we know when to stay focused on that one thing that we're doing, or when it's time to make that pivot or shift to try something else? Do you usually advise?
Yeah, it's all about the numbers. So here's the interesting thing is that people come to me all the time and say, Monica, this product launch didn't work, or this program launch didn't work. And when they tell me the numbers, it actually did work. They just didn't have enough people. They didn't get out there enough. Now, sometimes it's a matter of like changing the title, which happens a lot because people aren't so savvy with coming up with like really benefit-oriented titles that are going to work on their market. Sometimes it's a matter of how you did it. But I guess, the question of how do you know is definitely an art, not a science. And I think it's why it's so important to check in with someone who knows more than you do, right? This is why it's so important to be working with a business coach, because that person has been where you are and knows a little bit more about what really is happening here. Like, is it a fundamental issue with something that shouldn't be launched again or should be let go of? Or is this really just something that needs to be tweaked and tried again?
I was just going to say that. I was thinking about tweaking. I think that's something, and I've been guilty of this too in the past. Sometimes I think I should throw this whole thing away, or this whole thing didn't work, and not first looking as closely at numbers, as you reminded me, but also just not thinking, well, maybe you can tweak this or try something else. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurship, especially in the early days, is experimentation, right? And looking at your results and seeing then what kind of changes. But a lot of times we just want to scrap the whole thing because of either ego or embarrassed or whatever story, going back to the story we make up about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard to decipher between the story you're making up about it and what are actually true facts, and disappointment.
Yes.
When you're trying to do that by yourself, you often leap to conclusions that just aren't true.
What would you say that the breakthrough moment, going back to the beginning of your journey, what would you say that the breakthrough moment was like for you, or the moment when you felt like, okay, this is working? Was there a moment, or was it over a span of time, or what was it like in the beginning before, you had all the tips and everything that you've learned over the years?
For me, it was really the moment I got that I was doing everything backwards and upside down. And I can tell you it was when I started to really understand that I had to singularly focus on selling, and doing activities that were going to lead to sales. Because what that led to, I remember very clearly, it was really these steps. Like the day that I remember launching a group program, I had 7 people in the group program. I wanted 10. And I would normally go down a route where I would make myself wrong and decide I can't do it and just quit from there. But I remember in that moment being like, oh, right, if I lean into the numbers, all that means is that I need to have 9 conversations with people, which means on average, I need to be in front of at least 30 or 40 people in the next few weeks in order to meet the right people to have those conversations with. And I really was on board with the strategy versus beating myself up. And that, it was really when I got that, that you don't have to be afraid of sales, and that you don't have to be afraid of your numbers. And that if you lean into those and keep leaning into those, you will see your revenue increasing. And when your revenue increases, everything else gets a lot easier.
Another thing that I saw on that I read on your website or in your information was a phrase that you use about the learning curve of marketing and selling. Is that sort of what you've been telling us about? Just this idea that it takes time and experimenting and looking at your numbers and that kind of thing. And I ask because I think, again, so many of us as women entrepreneurs, sometimes we just say, oh, I don't know how to sell, or I'm not good at selling, or I don't know marketing. And then what?
Yes, it's a great question. There's a huge confusion out there in the marketplace. And the confusion is between skill sets and decisions. So a decision is, for example, deciding your target market, deciding what you're going to offer, like your program or your product, deciding the price point, deciding what's included. Those are all decisions and can be made relatively quickly, like immediately, like in one conversation. The skill set is what takes time to learn. So sales is a skill set. Writing is a skill set. Networking is a skill set. Delegating, training, managing, hiring. These are all skill sets. And speaking in front of people, it's a skill set. And people we're so funny because we will spend months making a decision, and then we want to master the skill set, immediately.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, I sales conversation, learning how to sell. Most people I train people mostly by starting with one-on-one sales, like learning how to sell to individuals. And then I work with people on learning how to sell to a stage, like sell from a stage or from the front of the room. And then learning how to sell when you're on a webinar. Like there's all different levels of sales. And it takes people, most people, 20 to 30 one-on-one sales conversations before they even start getting comfortable selling. And that doesn't mean you're not going to close, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to make any money doing those 20 to 30, but you may not like it. You may not feel like you're good at it. And that's really the definition of a skill set, is that you have to keep doing it in order to get better over time.
Yes. And I think to your point, we also have to go ahead and do it. I think sometimes, we try to sit still and wait till we get the courage to try the thing, or like we're going to get better and then we'll try, as opposed to, as you said, you get better by trying and by doing.
Yeah. I always tell my clients, you cannot perfect something if you don't have something to perfect.
Right. Right.
So my clients that are perfectionists are like, well, I want it to be perfect. And I'm like, show me something. Show me something to perfect, and then we'll make it perfect. You do a conversation and then let's perfect it. Write that first draft and then we'll perfect it. But if you don't have something to perfect, you're never, ever going to get it to perfect.
Now, before you go, I do want to ask you about, too, this idea, I think for some of us, especially related to marketing. And it's so interesting. I'm reminded in talking to you just how much marketing and mindset are so tied. Of course, there's strategy things, but so much of it is about story that we tell ourselves. But in any case, I'm interested in hearing from you this idea that a lot of us feel pressured to do what everyone else is doing in marketing. So social media, videos, whatever the thing is. So I'm interested in what you tell your clients about how to truly find what works for them and be okay letting the other things go.
Well, fundamentally, you can't do too many things at once, period. So it's not even so much about letting the other things go. It's about choosing what project you're going to be developing for yourself in this particular quarter. So what I say to my clients is, it's interesting because I say pick a revenue goal for your quarter and then do the activities that you're going to do to generate that revenue. And then know that the most important thing you're doing to generate that revenue is generating sales conversations. So the marketing activities that support you generating sales conversations may be different from another person. Like I may have one client who's more interested in going out and speaking in front of people. I may have another client who's more interested in nurturing her Facebook group and then asking for conversations there. But where people get complicated is they forget what they complicate it is they forget what it's connected to. Right? Like they think that they're doing the marketing just for marketing's sake. Like, let me post on Facebook just to post on Facebook. Let me go and speak just so I can be a good speaker. And one of the things that I really teach people is to connect everything to what outcome you want from it, which generally is a sale. And yes, that doesn't mean it doesn't mean you have to go in with desperation or manipulation or anything that people associate with sales. Actually, sales is a gift that you do for people. So we need to clear that first. But it's about really understanding what is your goal and then what is the best way for you specifically to get to that goal. Right.
So, Monica, what would you say that entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
Oh, so much. But I think, so for me, one of the things that has made business so much easier, especially over the last couple of years, is understanding that for me, business is a spiritual experience. And so what that means is that inside of me learning how to be a better business owner, I'm also becoming a better human being. So what comes up in the context of business are the lessons that I need to learn. Maybe they're the karmic things that I've brought into this lifetime. Maybe they're the places that need a little bit more smoothing, but they're the lessons that I need to learn in becoming a better human being. And so for that reason, I don't go into every day thinking, oh my gosh, today is going to be peaceful, or this week we don't have anything going on, because I know better than that. I know that this is my vehicle for growth. So therefore growth is going to happen, and growth doesn't always happen smoothly. So it's just allowed me to learn, and I'm still in the progress of this, but to really practice, I should say, the art of surrendering. Mm-hmm. And that's not like giving up. It's just leaning in to every moment as a learning experience instead of being triggered by it. And it's allowed, and it's funny because it's just, I'm a different human being because of it. I go home now to see my family, and I'm the youngest in my family. And for so many years, being the youngest in my family meant that you weren't listened to, you weren't heard, and you definitely didn't have opinions that people wanted to hear. And now when I go home, it's suddenly like everyone's listening. Everyone cares. And it's not because I'm successful, because it's just not it in my family. It's simply because I carry myself in a different way. Mm-hmm. And that's what's been remarkable about my business, is just watching myself evolve as a human being and watching how the world, including my own personal world, sees me completely differently than they did 10 years ago, or 12 years ago. Now, just as a word of warning for any of you that are listening, this took a lot of time for the people in my world to see it. So if you're someone who's in the first 3 or 4 years of your business and you're wondering why your friends and family don't understand or don't give you more respect, give them time. Because it took a while for me, but I'm really proud of where it is now and what I've become.
Yes, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Give them time and give yourself time too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in closing, Monica, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
It would be my dad, for sure. He's still alive and I adore him. I'm actually going home to see him tonight. And I say this to him all the time, he's my hero. He has modeled for me what it is to work hard, to save, and then to be completely unconditionally generous with your money, with your love. I've watched him contribute to us, contribute to a community, to build a school in India, and to really truly make this world a better place, which is what I want to do, and which is what so many of my clients want to do as well.
Beautiful. Is he still in Cincinnati?
Yes, he's still in Cincinnati.
Oh, nice. Oh, safe travels to Cincinnati. That's awesome. I love it. So now tell us, what are the ways that we can support you? I know you have some things to share with us. Tell everybody what you have and your website, social media, all that good stuff.
Perfect. So the first question people often ask me when they're listening to something like this is, Monica, what are the revenue generating activities? Like, I got it. I got that I'm supposed to sell more, but how do I do that? And where do I find people? And how do I set up those conversations? So I've created a free gift to help you really define what revenue generating activities are, what your marketing activities are, and how can you start to organize them. And it's at revenuebreakthrough.com/marketing calendar. It's I call it my done for you money making marketing calendar. And it's a calendar that tells you what activities you're supposed to be doing, the frequency in which you're doing them, when you should be doing them. There's a filled in calendar for you there. There's a blank calendar for you there for you to grab and be able to start organizing your next 60 days, your next 90 days, and feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I don't have to second guess myself anymore.
And that's revenuebreakthrough.com/
marketing calendar.
Marketing calendar. Okay, everyone. And I'll make sure, of course, that I have a link to it, but I wanted everyone to hear it. And then on your site as well, people can find out so much more about you and everything that you're up to as well.
Absolutely. My site is revenuebreakthrough.com. You can find me on social media. So I'm on Instagram at Revenue Breakthrough. So Facebook's at Revenue Breakthrough as well. So you can find me there. And Breakthrough is spelled BREAKTHROUGH.
Excellent. Monica, thank you so much. This was honestly so helpful for me. I know it'll be helpful for all the women and a few good men, I would say, who will listen to the podcast. I really appreciate it. It's such a part of the business, marketing, of course, but the other part, the mindset things that some of us forget about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Of course. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Just to remember that we're here to make this world a better place. And one of the best ways to do that is to get clear on your money. Every major movement in the world was funded. So I encourage you to really step into a place where you change your own legacy around money and you change that of everyone around you.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Monica as much as I did. To find out more about her, to find out more about Revenue Breakthrough, make sure you go to supportissexy.com. Go to that search box and just type Monica, Monica. Her show notes page will pop up with links, resources, that free marketing calendar that she told you about. Make sure you go to supportissexy.com, search Monica, and her show notes page will be there with all the information. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. It would not be the same without you. Now, until we chat next time, always remember, support is sexy, and having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.